She walked into the Belmont Avenue flagship store on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, wearing a simple cotton dress and carrying a worn leather bag. The security guard's eyes followed her immediately, his hand moving instinctively to his radio. The sales associates, dressed in their pristine designer uniforms, exchanged knowing glances as she stepped onto the polished marble floor. What they didn't know was that this woman, Dr. Amara Williams, was about to change everything they thought they understood about wealth, power, and the consequences of judgment. The store manager, Patricia Harrington, stood behind the mahogany counter, her lips pressed into a thin line as she watched the scene unfold. She had built her career on reading people, on knowing within seconds who belonged in her exclusive boutique, and who was simply wasting her staff's precious time. And everything about this woman, from her unmanicured nails to her department store shoes, screamed that she didn't belong among the $20,000 handbags and custom, tailored evening gowns that lined the walls. Before we go further into what happened that day, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Are you in New York, London, Los Angeles, or maybe Toronto? Drop your city in the comments, because what happened in this store happens everywhere, every single day, and it's time we talked about it. This isn't just a story about one incident. This is about a system that judges your bank account by the color of your skin and the brand on your clothes. Dr. Amara Williams hadn't always been wealthy. She grew up in a two-bedroom apartment in Detroit, sharing a room with her three sisters, watching her mother work double shifts at the hospital just to keep food on the table. She remembered the days when new shoes meant a trip to the thrift store, when birthday presents came from the clearance rack, when eating out meant a burger from the dollar menu. She remembered, too, the way store clerks followed her mother through department stores, the way security guards appeared whenever they browsed the jewelry section, the way her mother held her head high despite it all. That experience had fueled everything. Every late night studying for medical school exams, every rejection from investors when she pitched her revolutionary pharmaceutical research, every obstacle that seemed designed to keep her in her place. She had earned her doctorate in biochemistry at 26, developed a patent for a groundbreaking cancer treatment by 30, and sold that patent to a major pharmaceutical company for $350 million at 32. By 35, she had built a private equity empire worth over $2 billion. But standing in that store on Belmont Avenue, watching the sales associates deliberately turn their backs, Dr. Williams might as well have been that little girl in Detroit again, clutching her mother's hand while store employees made them feel like criminals for daring to browse. She approached the nearest display, a collection of Italian leather handbags, each one costing more than most people earned in 6 months. She reached out to touch a burgundy clutch, admiring the craftsmanship, when a sharp voice cut through the air. "Excuse me, those are very expensive." The sales associate, a blonde woman in her late 20s named Jennifer, stood with her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of condescension and barely concealed hostility. She didn't offer assistance. She didn't ask if Dr. Williams needed help finding anything. She simply stood there, a human barrier between the merchandise and someone she had decided didn't deserve access to it. Dr. Williams smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I can see the price tag. I was just admiring the leather work." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "Well, maybe you'd be more comfortable at one of the stores in the mall. They have more affordable options there." The other customers in the store, wealthy women draped in designer labels, stopped their browsing to watch. Some looked uncomfortable, sensing the ugly undercurrent of the exchange. Others smiled, enjoying the entertainment. None of them said anything. Dr. Williams took a slow breath, feeling the familiar anger rising in her chest, that special kind of rage that comes from being treated as less than human for no reason other than the melanin in your skin. She could have walked out. She probably should have walked out. But something in Jennifer's smug expression, something in the way the manager Patricia was watching from behind the counter with approval, made her stay. "Actually," Dr. Williams said, her voice calm and measured, I think I'll browse a bit more, unless there's a policy against that. Jennifer's face flushed. There's no policy, but we've had problems with theft, and I'm just trying to protect our merchandise. There it was. The accusation, barely veiled, not a customer, a potential thief, not a person with money to spend, a problem to be managed. Patricia Harrington decided it was time to intervene. She glided across the floor with practiced elegance, her Louboutin heels clicking against the marble, her expression one of professional concern that failed to mask the disdain underneath. "Is there something I can help you with?" Patricia asked, her tone making it clear that the only help she wanted to offer was directions to the exit. Dr. Williams met her gaze steadily. "I'm shopping. Is that a problem?" Patricia's smile was ice. "Of course not. We welcome all customers who are serious about making a purchase. However, our pieces are quite exclusive and expensive. The handbags start at $18,000. The evening gowns can run upwards of $40,000. I just want to make sure you understand what kind of establishment this is." The implication hung in the air like poison gas. "You don't belong here. You can't afford this. Leave before you embarrass yourself." Dr. Williams could feel the eyes of everyone in the store on her. The other customers, the sales associates, the security guard who had moved closer, ready to escort her out if necessary. This was a moment she had experienced in different forms throughout her life, a test of dignity, a question of whether she would shrink under their judgment or stand tall. She thought about her mother, who had faced similar humiliation with grace and strength. She thought about her younger self, who had promised that one day she would have the power to change things. And she thought about the countless other black women who walked into spaces like this every day, carrying their accomplishments and their wealth and their dignity, only to be treated as suspicious, as unworthy, as less than. "I understand perfectly what kind of establishment this is," Dr. Williams said quietly. "The question is, do you understand who I am?" Patricia's laugh was brittle. "I don't need to know who you are. What I know is what I see, and what I see is someone who is clearly out of her depth." Jennifer, emboldened by her manager's support, added, "Maybe if you saved up, you could afford something from our sales section. We have some items marked down to $5,000. The condescension was suffocating. Dr. Williams reached into her worn leather bag and pulled out her phone. Patricia and Jennifer exchanged glances, probably assuming she was about to take photos or cause a scene. Instead, Dr. Williams pulled up her banking app, turned the screen toward them, and asked, "Is $173 million enough for your sales section?" The number glowed on the screen, just her checking account balance, not counting her investment portfolios, her real estate holdings, or her business assets. Patricia's face went white. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The other customers leaned closer, trying to see the screen, whispers rippling through the store. "That's just one account." Dr. Williams continued, her voice still calm but edged with steel now. "Would you like me to show you the others, or can I shop in peace?" Patricia recovered first, her years of customer service training kicking in despite her shock. "I apologize for any misunderstanding. Jennifer, help this customer with whatever she needs." But Dr. Williams shook her head. "No, I don't think I want to shop here after all. Not because I can't afford it, but because I don't give my money to businesses that treat people like this." She turned to leave, her head high, her dignity intact. She had made her point. She had shown them their prejudice, their ugly assumptions, the way they had judged her by her appearance rather than her worth. But as she reached the door, something made her stop. It wasn't enough. Showing them she had money didn't change anything. They would go back to their lives, maybe feel embarrassed for an afternoon, maybe tell the story at dinner parties about the time they misjudged someone. But nothing would change. The next black woman who walked through those doors would face the same treatment, the same assumptions, the same humiliation. Dr. Williams turned around slowly. Patricia and Jennifer were whispering frantically, probably already trying to figure out how to fix their mistake, how to salvage a potential massive sale. The other customers had gone back to their shopping, the drama over, already forgetting the lesson they had just witnessed. "Actually," Dr. Williams said, and everyone froze, "I am going to make a purchase today, but not the way you think." She pulled up a different app on her phone, one that connected her directly to her corporate attorney, Marcus Chen, one of the most ruthless dealmakers in New York. She put the phone on speaker, the ringtone echoing through the suddenly silent store. Marcus answered on the second ring. "Amara, what can I do for you?" "Marcus, I'm standing in the Belmont Avenue store of Harrington Luxury Goods. I want you to find out who owns this company and make them an offer. Today." Patricia's face went from white to gray. Harrington Luxury Goods wasn't just the name of her store. It was her family's company, founded by her grandfather 60 years ago, grown into a chain of 37 luxury boutiques across North America and Europe. Patricia herself owned 15% of the company stock, a legacy from her father. "The whole chain?" Marcus asked, and Dr. Williams could hear the excitement in his voice. He loved a challenge. "The whole chain. I don't care what it costs. Make them an offer they can't refuse." Jennifer had sat down on one of the velvet benches, her face buried in her hands. The other customers had stopped pretending to shop and were openly staring now. The security guard had backed away, suddenly finding something fascinating to look at on his phone. Patricia finally found her voice. "You can't be serious. My family will never sell. This company is our legacy." Dr. Williams looked at her with something that might have been pity. "Marcus, are you looking up the company? Already on it?" Marcus said, his fingers flying across his keyboard audibly. "Harrington Luxury Goods, private company, estimated value between 300 and 400 million. Primary shareholders are the Harrington Family Trust, 45%, and Bentley Investment Group, 35%. Bentley has been trying to take majority control for the last 10 years. The family has been fighting it." Patricia's face confirmed everything. The fight with Bentley Investment Group had been brutal, a corporate battle that had drained the family's resources and divided them internally. Some family members wanted to sell and take the money. Others, like Patricia, wanted to hold on to their legacy at any cost, make an offer to Bentley first. Dr. Williams instructed, $500 million for their 35%. That will give me leverage with the family. "You're insane." Patricia whispered, "You're going to spend $500 million because someone was rude to you." Dr. Williams's expression hardened. "No, I'm going to spend $500 million because this happens every single day. Because black women and men walk into stores like this and get treated like criminals. Because people like you think you can judge someone's worth by their appearance. Because the only language people like you understand is money and power." Marcus was already making calls in the background, his voice a rapid-fire negotiation with someone at Bentley Investment Group. Dr. Williams could hear the surprise in the other person's voice, the scrambling to get decision-makers on the line. This wasn't how corporate acquisitions usually happened, but Marcus was brilliant at exploiting chaos. "They're interested," Marcus said 15 minutes later, "very interested. Bentley wants to meet tomorrow to discuss terms. Tell them I want an answer by close of business today. If they agree to sell, I'll wire the funds immediately. No due diligence period, no lengthy negotiations. 500 million, cash today." Patricia had her own phone out now, frantically calling family members, trying to mount a defense against what was clearly about to happen. But Dr. Williams could see the defeat in her eyes. Once Bentley sold, Dr. Williams would have a plurality of shares and enough leverage to force the family to negotiate. The other customers had given up any pretense of shopping. This was better than reality television, a real-life corporate takeover happening right in front of them. Some were recording on their phones, already planning how to share this story with their friends, their social media followers. Jennifer was crying softly, realizing that her career in luxury retail was probably over. Word would spread. She would be the sales associate who cost her company hundreds of millions of dollars, who triggered a hostile takeover because she couldn't see past her own prejudice. 2 hours later, Marcus called back. Bentley agreed. They want the deal signed before their board can second guess it. I need you to authorize the wire transfer. Dr. Williams didn't hesitate. She pulled up her banking app, authorized the transfer of $500 million, and watched as the transaction processed. Just like that, she owned 35% of Harrington Luxury Goods. Patricia sank into a chair, her phone falling from her hand. This isn't over. The family won't sell. We'll fight you. But over the next 3 weeks, Dr. Williams proved that Patricia was wrong. She made calls to the other family members, the ones who were tired of fighting Bentley, tired of watching their inheritance shrink as legal bills mounted. She offered them fair prices, sometimes generous prices, for their shares. One by one they sold. She didn't need all of them. She just needed enough to have majority control. And 38 days after walking into that Belmont Avenue store, Dr. Amara Williams owned 53% of Harrington Luxury Goods. She was now the owner of 37 luxury boutiques, with Patricia Harrington and her family as minority shareholders, powerless to stop whatever came next. The first thing Dr. Williams did was call a meeting of all store managers. Patricia had to attend, had to sit in a conference room and watch as the woman she had dismissed as unworthy took control of her family's legacy. Dr. Williams stood at the head of the conference table, looking at the faces of the men and women who managed her stores. Most of them looked nervous. They knew change was coming. They just didn't know what form it would take. I bought this company for a very specific reason. Dr. Williams began. I bought it because one of your managers and one of your sales associates treated me like a criminal because of the color of my skin. I bought it because this kind of discrimination happens every single day in retail establishments across the world. And I bought it because I have the power to do something about it. Patricia stared at the table, her face flushed with humiliation, but Dr. Williams wasn't done. Effective immediately, every store in this chain will implement new training programs on unconscious bias and cultural sensitivity. Every employee, from security guards to store managers, will participate. These won't be optional diversity seminars that everyone sleeps through. These will be real, substantive programs that change how you see and interact with customers. She paused, letting that sink in. Second, we're implementing a customer bill of rights. Every person who walks into our stores has the right to be treated with respect, regardless of their appearance, their race, their age, or any other factor. Any employee who violates these rights will be terminated immediately. No warnings, no second chances. One of the managers, a middle-aged man from the Chicago store, raised his hand tentatively. What about theft prevention? We do have to protect our merchandise. Dr. Williams's gaze could have cut glass. You can protect your merchandise without profiling customers. You can have security protocols without treating black and brown people like criminals. If you can't figure out how to do that, you shouldn't be working in retail. She pulled out a document, sliding copies across the table to each manager. This is also effective immediately. 10% of our floor staff in every store must be people of color. Not in the back rooms, not in the warehouses. On the floor, helping customers, representing our brand. We're going to reflect the diversity of the communities we serve. Patricia finally spoke, her voice bitter. You're going to destroy everything my grandfather built. These stores have a reputation, a certain image. Dr. Williams turned to her slowly. Your grandfather built a company that made money off exclusivity and elitism. I'm going to build a company that makes money off respect and quality. If you can't support that vision, Patricia, you're welcome to sell me your remaining shares and leave. Patricia said nothing, but her expression made it clear she was trapped. Her shares were now worth significantly less than they had been before the takeover. Selling would mean accepting a loss, admitting defeat. There's one more thing, Dr. Williams continued. We're establishing a scholarship fund. Every year, this company will fund 10 full scholarships for students of color pursuing degrees in business, fashion, or design. We're going to invest in the next generation, In the people who have been shut out of spaces like this. She looked around the table, meeting each manager's eyes. Some of you are angry right now. Some of you think I'm being vindictive, that I'm overreacting to one bad experience. But here's what you need to understand. That wasn't one bad experience. That was my entire life condensed into one afternoon. That was every black person's life. Every moment we walk into a space and have to prove we belong. One of the managers, a black woman from the Atlanta store, was crying quietly. She nodded as Dr. Williams spoke, recognition and relief flooding her face. This company will still sell luxury goods, Dr. Williams continued. We'll still cater to wealthy clients, but we're going to do it without making anyone feel less than human. We're going to do it while remembering that wealth doesn't determine worth, that designer clothes don't make someone better than anyone else. She gathered her papers, preparing to leave. You have 90 days to implement these changes. Stores that don't comply will be closed. Managers who resist will be replaced. This isn't a democracy. This is my company now, and we're going to do things my way. As the meeting broke up, Patricia approached Dr. Williams, her expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been grudging respect. You didn't have to buy the entire company, Patricia said quietly. You could have just filed a discrimination complaint. You could have gotten Jennifer and me fired. Dr. Williams looked at her steadily. A complaint would have changed nothing. Getting you fired would have changed nothing. But this changes everything. Every employee in this company will now think twice before they judge someone by their appearance. Every black woman who walks into our stores will be treated with respect. That's worth $500 million. Patricia shook her head. You're going to lose money. These changes will drive away our traditional customers. Maybe, Dr. Williams conceded, or maybe we'll gain new customers, people who have never felt welcome in luxury stores before. People who have money to spend, but have been treated like they don't matter. There's a whole market of wealthy people of color who have been ignored by the luxury industry. I'm going to capture that market. She was right. Over the next year, Harrington Luxury Goods underwent a complete transformation. Some traditional customers did leave, uncomfortable with the changes, with seeing people of color in positions of authority, with losing their exclusive playground. But new customers arrived in droves. Wealthy black professionals who had money to spend but had avoided luxury retail because of experiences like Dr. Williams's. Young entrepreneurs of color who were building fortunes in tech and entertainment. International customers who appreciated the store's new inclusive approach. Revenue increased by 32% in the first year. The scholarship fund became a prestigious program with hundreds of applications for those 10 spots. And the stores themselves became known not just for their luxury goods, but for their commitment to treating every customer with dignity. Jennifer, the sales associate who had started it all, did lose her job. But she also learned from the experience. She went back to school, got a degree in social work, and now runs programs teaching cultural sensitivity to retail workers. She tells her story often about the day her prejudice cost a company $500 million, about the lesson she learned in the hardest way possible. Patricia Harrington eventually left the company, selling her remaining shares to Dr. Williams at a modest profit. She started a consulting business, ironically helping family-owned luxury companies navigate the changing demographics of their customer base. She never quite admitted that Dr. Williams had been right, but her work spoke for itself. As for Dr. Amara Williams, she continued to build her empire. She used Harrington Luxury Goods as a template, acquiring other companies where she saw discrimination and inequality, transforming them from the inside out. She became known not just as a billionaire businesswoman, but as someone who used her wealth and power to create real change. 5 years after that day, in the Belmont Avenue store, Dr. Williams was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine. The article detailed her acquisition strategy, her commitment to diversity and inclusion, and her belief that capitalism could be a force for social good when wielded by people who cared about more than just profits. In the interview, she was asked if she regretted spending so much money in response to one incident of discrimination. Her answer was simple and direct. The only thing I regret is that I have to spend money to make people treat each other with basic human dignity. But if that's what it takes, I'll keep spending. I'll keep buying companies and changing them, because every person deserves to walk into a store and be seen as a customer, not as a threat. Every person deserves respect, regardless of what they look like or what they're wearing. She paused, then added, "That security guard who followed me into the Belmont Avenue store, he still works for the company, but now he's the head of our security training program, teaching other guards how to protect merchandise without profiling customers. That's the kind of change that matters. Not punishment, but transformation." The reporter asked one final question. "Do you still shop at Harrington luxury goods stores?" Dr. Williams smiled, a real smile this time. "Every week, and you know what? Now when I walk in wearing jeans and a t-shirt, the staff greets me by name, offers me coffee, and treats me exactly the same as they treat the customers in designer clothes. That's all I ever wanted. That's all anyone should want." She stood up, preparing to leave the interview. The world is changing. Companies can change with it, or they can be left behind. I chose to force the change because I had the resources to do it. But every person, regardless of their wealth, has the power to demand better, to refuse to accept discrimination, to stand up and say, "I matter, and I deserve respect." That interview went viral, shared millions of times across social media. Young people, especially young people of color, saw it as a blueprint for using success to create change. Business schools taught case studies about the Harrington luxury goods acquisition, debating the ethics and effectiveness of Dr. Williams's approach. But for Dr. Williams herself, it was never about being famous or being held up as an example. It was about that little girl in Detroit, holding her mother's hand in department stores, watching her mother endure humiliation with grace. It was about making sure that little girl and millions like her would grow up in a world that saw their worth. And it was about proving that sometimes the best response to being told you don't belong isn't to shrink away. Sometimes the best response is to buy the whole damn store and change the rules. So let me ask you again, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments, and more importantly, have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever been judged, dismissed, or treated as less than because of how you looked? Share your story. Let's talk about it, because the only way things change is if we refuse to accept them as they are. And remember, wealth isn't about how much money you have in the bank. True wealth is having the courage to stand up for yourself, the strength to demand respect, and the vision to create a better world for those who come after you. Dr. Amara Williams had financial wealth, yes. But what she really had was the wealth of dignity, the wealth of purpose, the wealth of knowing that your worth isn't determined by how others see you, but by how you see yourself.